What are the worst new cars that I've tested and reviewed? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. I test drive over 50 new vehicle models every year, and for this video, I'm going to share the worst ones that I've tested so far this year that were complete and utter disappointments that you would be crazy to waste your money on and you would most likely regret buying. So let's get right into it, starting with the first vehicle of the list, which is the Volkswagen ID. Buzz. Now admittedly, I had a shorter than normal testing period for this one because I did borrow it from a dealer because Volkswagen's head office does not respond to my emails or inquiries. And after finishing my testing period, I think I can understand why. The ID. Buzz is the ultimate shiny object designed to attract those who are just smitten by its unique design, retro-inspired looks, and admittedly cool image. But beneath those eye-catching looks, there are some serious concerns. On the positive side, it's a fun vehicle to drive around in, especially if you like attention or just like to be different. The interior is pretty nice, it comes loaded with features and tech, and although it's not quite minivan spacious, it's very spacious and practical nonetheless. With all that said though, none of that changes to the fact that at the end of the day, the ID. Buzz is just too hard of a pill to swallow. The biggest problem is the driving range, which is utterly useless, rated at 230 miles or 370 kilometers at best. But realistically, the range is more like 180 miles or 300 kilometers. And that's just unacceptable for a vehicle this expensive. As tested, my example was nearly 70,000 US or 90,000 Canadian, which is far too much. And sadly, the result is that it just makes the ID. Buzz a rich, flashy toy for those who have tons of money and don't really care about much else, rather than an actual, reasonable, rational vehicle for families. Double the driving range and cut the price by 30%, maybe then it would make sense to take a shot on one. But as it stands, it's just too hard of a sell. And next up on the list of disappointing test drives, we have a luxury SUV. They recently updated Infiniti QX60. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a very nice luxury 3-row SUV. But the sad truth is that it just makes absolutely no sense to consider it. For one thing, Infiniti dropped its reliable, well-proven V6 engine and replaced it with a far more complicated 2-liter VC turbo 4-cylinder that's no more fuel efficient, much worse to drive, and already has documented reliability problems. This engine is going to just crater what little resale value this brand had left. Infiniti seems to be a dying brand on its last lifeline. Their sales are dismal, and I could see their parent company Nissan putting them down any day. So it just makes no sense to drop 60 to 70 grand on one of these, given the major risks and how much money is on the line. If you want a 3-row luxury SUV, buy a much better Lexus TX or Acura MDX instead. The next vehicle on my list of disappointing test drives is an SUV that was brand new this past year, which is the Jeep Wagoneer S. This is Jeep's first all-electric model, and while it has a few nice qualities, there are far more downsides. Driving it for a week, it was very obvious that this is an early first attempt at an EV with all kinds of weird driving issues with the brakes, suspension. I got a few warning lights come on my test vehicle and glitchy electronics with the touchscreens. Clearly, there are many bugs to sort out, which for Jeep is no surprise, and probably only the beginning of a major headache ownership experience. It's also just way too expensive for what it is. Jeep tried to go with a Range Rover vibe with the looks and interior, but it just comes across as feeling cheap, not that impressive, and I think it would be absolutely crazy to dump $80,000 or more on one of these. You'd just be blowing your money on a rapidly depreciating money pit that would likely be a never-ending source of problems. The next disappointing test drive is a vehicle that I really wanted to like, but in the end I just cannot recommend. And that vehicle is the Volvo EX30. This one is a real disappointment because I actually really enjoyed driving the EX30 for a week. It feels like an electric hot hatchback. super fast acceleration, nimble go-kart handling, just an incredibly nice, fun car to drive. The interior is nicely finished and does have some good tech with its Google-based user interface. But sadly, that's where the praise ends because the list of problems is far greater. As good as the tech is, it is incredibly frustrating that absolutely everything, from the mirror adjustments to opening the glove box, is done through the screen. You don't even have a driver display. The minimalist design is just far too irritating. The driving range on a full charge is also incredibly low, maybe 250 miles or 400 kilometers at best, if you're lucky. And the pricing is just absolutely absurd for such a tiny, cramped vehicle with next to no rear seat space or cargo space. The EX30 was initially supposed to be a $35,000 vehicle, which would have been a reasonable price, but to pay almost 50,000 US or 70,000 Canadian, it just makes 0 sense in North America to buy one of these whatsoever. Another vehicle that I test drove that I found to be another major disappointment is the redesigned Audi Q5. Again, a nicely styled SUV with decent technology and a nice driving feel, with great performance and all that. But this is another vehicle that just does not live up to its lofty price tag. I mean, I just can't imagine spending 60,000 US or 80,000 Canadian on one of these for such a mediocre vehicle. I mean, really, the interior on the Q5 is such an utter letdown with cheap, flimsy plastic everywhere, no real controls, and frustrating touchscreens everywhere that are designed to overcompensate for the lack of any real luxury. I just can't think of any reason to consider it when you could buy the new Volkswagen Tiguan, for example, which is basically the exact same vehicle with the same everything for $20,000 less. Or better yet, a premium feeling SUV that's actually reliable and well made, such as a Lexus NX or even a Mazda CX-5, because the Q5 just does not make much sense. And I have more or less the same complaint with the next SUV, which is the BMW X3. This was another disappointing test drive, largely due to the same complaints I have with the Q5. The biggest issue with the X3 is its incredibly lackluster interior, which is incredibly plain, filled with cheap plastic, and again, trying to rely on fancy screens and lighting to overcompensate for the lack of any real luxury or quality. It's a nice driving SUV, it has good handling, performance, and a great drivetrain. And BMW reliability does seem to have improved over the past few years. But none of that is enough to make up for the fact that this is just not a good value. And it's not good enough, especially at such a high price. And the next disappointing test drive that we have is the Buick Envision. The Envision is a Chinese-built GM SUV, and as with all Buicks, it occupies this weird space between Chevrolet and Cadillac, and quite frankly, it comes across as more of an overpriced Chevy than a bargain-priced Cadillac, which is not a good thing. The top-of-the-line Avenir version is pretty nice, but I just can't fathom why anyone would dump close to 50,000 US or 60,000 Canadian for one of these, especially given GM's track record for shaky reliability and lower than average resale value. So, like all Buicks, the Envision just does not have any standout qualities that make it worth considering, especially when for the same money, you could buy a much better Lexus NX or even a Mazda CX-5. And I have pretty much the same complaints with this next new SUV on the list, which is the redesigned Nissan Murano. Nissan redesigned the Murano for 2025, giving it snazzy new styling, a new more luxurious interior, and a new drivetrain. Unfortunately, Nissan messed this one up. They took one major step forward by finally replacing the terrible failure-prone CVT with a regular 9-speed automatic transmission, which is great. But like Infiniti, they went and ruined their effort by replacing the reliable 3.5-liter V6 engine with the complicated 2-liter VC turbo engine that's been having constant problems. Like I said, one step forward, another step backward. The other issue with the Murano is that it really doesn't offer anything that you can't already get in the much less expensive Nissan Rogue. Compared to the Rogue, the Murano is really no bigger, no roomier, it's just more expensive. There's no real value here, which probably explains why consumers are pretty much ignoring it. I can't think of much of a reason to buy one, and clearly consumers agree. So there it is, my worst test drive so far of the year. As you can see, I say it how it is, no holding back, no fear of upsetting any automakers, which is how I wish other YouTubers would do it, but hey, it is what it is. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you are planning to purchase a vehicle and you live in Ontario, know that OMVIC is the vehicle sales regulator that administers and enforces the rules that dealerships must follow. To learn more about your consumer protection rights, visit omvic.ca. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.